Hello and welcome back to my second part here, Sagittarius, the animal, the human, and the angel. So I was just mentioning some of the characteristics of a Sag, and I will be continuing with explaining this to you as well. If you are a Sagittarian, thank you for tuning in. If you have any of your moon rising or perhaps your Venus is in Sagittarius, then this could be for you. When I make these videos, I don't particularly like locking them into certain genders or anything like that. I just kind of go with what I feel. It's I just kind of go with what I feel. Sagittarians themselves are very renowned for doing, excuse me. They're just renowned for just kind of doing their own thing. And that's really what it is. They like that wild, untamed energy. There is a creative soul to a Sagittarius, which is all about culture and it's all about freedom. And freedom to do what feels true. So if you have been, what feels true to them? So if you've been ghosted by one or they've pulled away suddenly, this is really common. I think a lot of the time, Sagittarius will come into a relationship and get very excited. They can be quite enthralling and quite charming. A lot of them are just that way inclined. They have a magnetism about them that is makes people quite jealous as well. And I'm not saying that in an egotistical way. They just have a light about them that does see the world as this kind of magical, like abandoned shipwreck under the sea. Come with me, let's go explore it. And so that's really the lens that they see the world through. If you're new to astrology, I'm just going to break it down to you. Your sun sign is your outer world. That's the way that the world sees you. This will be the ruling part of a chart in a human that most people unfortunately do operate from if they haven't developed a sense of self. That's why, yes, I have mentioned before in previous videos when it comes to astrology and looking at the kind of crux of someone's soul in astrology, a lot of people haven't done the shadow work. They haven't had a chance to develop objective thinking or critical thinking. So they kind of, the way the world sees them and interacts with them is kind of how they see themselves. And that's really kind of, that's really kind of where a lot of people operate. I have talked about that with NPCs as well. It was always said, and I say it again, I always say it, you're probably sick of me, you're probably sick of me saying it, but the day shapes us, but we shape the day. So there is a dance or an exchange that's happening where the outside world or our environment is shaping us, and then we interact with that within ourselves, and then we kind of form ourselves and shape ourselves from the environment that we're in as well. So it's kind of like a frog, and it's, the temperature of the water or the location the frog is put in. It's kind of like a fish put in a pond. How big it grows depends on the quality of the water, depends on the size of the pond, that type of thing. It's all connected. Basically, what I'm saying is all things are one. Now, Sagittarians need to get over themselves a lot of the time. A lot of them do have a very big ego. Ego is who we are. It's our sense of self-concept, and it is important. We can't actually separate ourselves from the ego. When people talk about the death of the ego, or I had the death of the ego experience, what they're mostly referring to is they had a real humbling moment where a pattern or a path that they were on reached a point that it couldn't really go any further, or it was uncovered that it wasn't authentic. So their ego was challenged, because our ego is nothing more than our own sense of self-concept. And one of the things that you'll understand, and it's taken me a hot minute to understand, and as we go through life is that there'll always be someone better than you at everything. There'll always be a better artist than me, a better painter than me. There'll always be someone who knows more about things than me, whatever the topic is. There'll always be someone who's taller than me, who's prettier than me, who's got a bigger dick than me, who's got a better smile than me. There'll always be someone who's a better human than me. There's always a bigger fish, okay? Period. So benchmarking ourselves and living vicariously through others is no way to live. The only real way of happiness is not living in self-comparison. And so with the fire signs, particularly Sagittarius, this comes up a lot because there is a competitive side to the Aries. There is a competitive side to the Sagittarian. There's nothing wrong with competitive energy, but understanding that, and I think it's actually just having a moment thinking, I think it was Miley Cyrus. I was listening to an interview with her once. She said that she doesn't give a fuck about like other artists and what they're doing because she is Miley Cyrus. She's doing her. When you stand in your place, in your power, in your vibe, in your energy, in your truth, no one else can take that away from you. So when you look at Miley's music and she is a Sag, or you look at Taylor Swift's music and she is a Sag, or you look at, say, Nelly Furtado, she is a Sag, these women are all doing their own fucking thing. They're not interested in what Nicki Minaj is doing or what another recording artist might be coming up and getting the next hit. They don't care. They're doing it because they love it, and they're doing it because that's their most authentic experience. So when you're in yourself and in your truth, there's nothing else to compete with outside of you because you're just competing with the last version of you or whatever it was or wherever you were before. And there are many, many different lives and many different versions of us that we go through as we evolve. If you are evolving is painful. Growing is painful. Life is painful. The pursuit of happiness is not the point of life. Okay, a happy time makes a weak man. Weak men create shit times. Hard times create strong men. That creates lazy men that create more weak times if things are too good. So complacency, what I'm saying is complacency is where you go to die on the couch. All right. So the thing about the Sag is we're actually crazy enough to actually follow through and do the work to make something happen, because we understand that discipline and suffering creates freedom. That's why when you see someone who's really fit and they've got a six-pack, the value of someone being fit and having a six-pack is the suffering that it took to create that. All right, that's why it's a value. That's why diamonds are so valuable, because people die trying to get them. That's what gives it value. Okay, if it was just being fat and lazy all the time, there's no value in this. Its devaluation is not exciting. So for me personally, I'm interested in people that are stronger than me, smarter than me, better than me, faster than me. I'm always attracted to basically powerful people that have something that I want to integrate into myself, because it will feel like it will bring me closer to my truth if I can grow to meet my full potential. That is the crux of a Sagittarius. Sagittarian women, genetically, like I've mentioned before, and I'm going to do a video series at some stage explaining this to you, but you may not know this, maybe you do know this. Your physiological composition of a human in your DNA and what you look like is also connected to the blueprint of what some people would call in Christianity the Godhead. So when God created you, you were fractals of all of these little bits of each other and of source of other people, all kind of mixed together in this time-space reality. So there are types and patterns of what people look like physically in this world. Just saying. So a Sagittarius woman, it's the eyes, they're unruly, they're wild, They're exciting. They have an energy to them, particularly if it's like a Latina Sagittarius. Very feisty, very fiery energy. The hair on a Sagittarian usually is wavy, curly, big, bouncy, and beautiful. Big, bright energy. When Sagittarian women, usually no matter what their ethnicity, they're usually more tanned in color. If you see a Sagittarian woman that is more pale in their coloring, despite their ethnicity, whether they're English or whether they're more Anglo-Saxon or whether they are more Irish or Scottish, you'd have to look at their chart and see where the moon signs are, because we look mostly as a human like our rising sign, and our sun sign is what makes our physicality component to a human. I'm just doing a little bit of a biohack here. So Sagittarian women usually have big hips. They have big, beautiful bums, hips, legs. This is the ruling part of the Sag. Great asses. A lot of these Sagittarian, I can say it because I'm a gay man. A lot of Sagittarian men have big, round bubble butts, big asses, hairy, kind of like a horse. A lot of Sagittarian men are usually quite well hung. They've got a horse dick on them. They like to fuck. It's just how they are. Some of them are a little bit, might have a tinge of red in their hair as well, like a lot of brown hair, green eyes, that type of thing. It's just in their genetic makeup. A lot of Indian Sagittarian men are very tanned and very long in their limbs. So they're long arms, long legs, very naturally Adonis-like, beauty, Venus energy. Remember, I was talking about the Luciferic consciousness in Sagittarian is Venus. It's beauty, all right? It's the natural world. A lot of them don't want to wear deodorant. They don't want that. They're very cautious about putting unnatural chemicals on their body. Sagittarians don't want that shit. This is their smell. That's how they smell. They don't want to be changed. They don't want to change that, okay? They don't want to change that inner rebellion. So the Mexican Sagittarians are very fiery, lots of passion and energy. If you're boring, if you're predictable, if you're very structured and mechanical, you'll never hear from them again. They just push you away and they just fuck you off, okay? Sagittarians can be bitter. So I will mention here that a lot of them that had unmet potential, that were very smart, that didn't really feel that they get what they deserved in life, can become very sarcastic and very dark-sided with their humor if they have been hurt or scorned or betrayed. People often say that Sagittarians don't hold grudges. That just isn't true. The Sagittarian will be terribly burned and scarred, and they carry that pain with them, but they just need an outlet to express that pain, and they will never forget what that other person did to them. All right, so that's one of the things I would say. Also, as a Sagittarian explaining this to you, when I say, or when a Sag says to you, please, I'll chat to you next week, they mean chat to you next week. If you call them or text them and you're messaging them every day, they don't like clingy energy. They don't like feeling like someone's encroaching on their space and smothering them. In a relationship, they'd be like, bye, out the door, and you'd never hear from them ever again. Why? Just like Aquarius, Sagittarians have a very, very strong free will. They don't want to be told what to do. Okay, so you can't tell them what to do. They go where they feel that they want to go, like the horse. If you approach the horse from the wrong angle and your first impression with them isn't right, they run. The horse bolts, all right? It can be very hot and cold in that regard. People, they kind of get a bad rap. Now, the Sagittarian's all about behavior. So anyone can say that they love them. They want to see consistency from you. So if you're committed to them and you're showing them that you want to come on that journey of life with them, they want you to improve your life if they come into your life. So real talk, like crucial one-on-ones and real check-ins is absolutely crucial to sustaining a relationship with them. The conversations need to be about death, rebirth, angels, demons, ETs, the spiritual world, psychology, Jung, the Rothschilds. It's got to be about all of the really heavy topics that no one else wants to go. That's where Sagittarians want to go. If they meet people and that person has been in the world for a long time and they haven't even considered looking at the unseen forces that hold things together, the Sagittarian isn't going to hang around. Much like a demon, they're not really going to be up for a relationship with something that isn't even tuned into itself. They can't be fucked with that. The dark side of a Sagittarius, I've mentioned this before, the darkest side of a Sag is a pedophile. A lot of them are very taboo in that regard. And they if they're evil, they exploit their power through their status. So pride is a very big thing with the Sagittarians. A lot of priests, a lot of school teachers that take advantage of younger people, a lot of them are Sagittarians. It's the darker side of a mind that can control an innocent mind. That level of thinking, that dark energy, is the darker side of in perversion in a Sagittarius as well. They would fuck their best friend's mum. They would fuck all of their friends. They just have a fuck just to be friends. When a Sagittarius gets married, they walk down the aisle. They probably had sex with all of the men and women at the fucking wedding. But somehow, this is the thing that's interesting about them, is that people don't, although they're total heartbreakers, Sagittarians can still hold friendships with people that they've had sexual relations with. Much like Cancer can as well. They can have an attachment that will go from being a sexual item with someone to being kind of like easy sailing friend kind of thing. So a Sagittarian needs a plan. A lot of them they're planners, so they want to go on those journeys. So Lara Croft would be the perfect example of that kind of Sagittarian energy. Getting up, let's go for our hike, let's get motivated, what's our goals, write down our manifestation board, what are we working on today? That type of energy is really good in their chart. If it's a Sag Sun, Sag Rising, then that perspective of expansion, it's all about Jupiter, which is all about how can we go further, how can we get more, how can we take it to the next level, that level of way of being. The problem is with mundane things, Sagittarius rebels. So if it's kind of like the concept of being locked in or hemmed in a relationship feels restrictive to them. And so they tend to slip out of it, or they tend to try and find loopholes in the relationship. And it's a tricky one because a lot of them would hate to be cheated on, but yet a lot of the Sagittarians, men in particular, will be terribly offended if someone cheated on them and one-upped them, but it's okay for them to do that to other people. I've noticed that it's tricky. It's interesting, actually, because if it was a Taurus cheating, then you wouldn't know. If it was a Scorpio cheating on you, then you wouldn't really know. But if it was a Sagittarius cheating on you, you would sense it straight away. They're not the best liars like a Scorpio can or a Gemini can. Sagittarians tend to, when they tell you the truth, that kind of means that they love you. Even if the truth is that they just say, yeah, I'm just seeing two people at the same time right now. That's kind of how they operate a little bit. So, yeah. And then it's a tricky one because they need lots of time alone as well. Like a lot of them, if they can't get that connection in their family, or if they can't get it with friends, they'll probably go within themselves into their art or into their writing or into their songwriting and pour their energy into something that way instead. So, that's a really tricky one. I think as I'm getting older, I'm learning about the excessiveness of my own energy, which is even now, like in these videos, I just kind of blur, like it all just kind of comes out, and there's so much inside my head that sometimes for some people it would be a little bit overwhelming. It's almost like with us, it's like we know something about life that other people just don't know, and right there, that is the truth. We know something that we want you to know, but we know you don't know. And I think that Scorpio understands that as well, because Scorpio is kind of like life and death and sex and rebirth. They understand that as a child, but then they understand they can't necessarily share that with people because people will just run away as quickly as possible. That's why me making videos like this right now and just speaking this truly from my heart is very confronting to people, because when you have a great range of access to your own vulnerability and your own emotions, it reminds other people of the lack of authenticity and willingness to connect on a real level that they don't have. So they run away. That's why a lot of perverted people, a lot of gay men, when I talk to them, they run, because they're living in such a level of dysfunction that the function threatens their dysfunction, if that makes sense. Their level of perversion, when it comes up against something that is like wholesome, it runs away because it freaks them out. So, I've had that with certain people, and certain people have come into my life, and I've gone on dates, or I've sat with them on a coffee date, and I've just told them something about my life that I've shared, or perhaps I've picked up something about them that I'll bring up to them in the conversation. And particularly if they are on the Machiavellian scale, they usually just run, because once they realize that you can see that they're hiding something, or they realize that you can see the real them that's underneath the facade or the mask that they're projecting, that means their cover's blown. So they just tend to run. So I think that's quite a bit there. If you went to a Sagittarian's house, like a lot of them kind of like, it's like a gift shop house. A lot of them have lots of bits of pieces of different things, different cultures. It could be a samurai sword, it could be some animals, it could be a weird little cookie jar. It's very eclectic. That's kind of how they are. It's like all of their travels. And getting back to what I said before about Sagittarians just knowing things about life that others just don't know, if the Sagittarian has gone through a lot of grief and a lot of death, they've experienced things that had to happen on their journey that no other sign would really have. Like, for example, I was just saying the other day, I've had so many different jobs in my life. Like, I've done so many different things that if I was to put all of this and diarize that on a document like a resume and give that to a potential employer, they would look at that and go, oh my God, you've done so much. Like, this is a little bit, it's almost like your past is crowded because you've done so much stuff. But that's actually the life that I've had. And because of all of those living experiences, that's how I get this level of ability to kind of morph and be show different sides to me, because I'm not making those sides up to be super complex. I'm just showing you that these are all the different sides to me that make me from all of the experiences, like the vault that I have inside of me that can come out and I can open that. So I hope that made sense. Sagittarians go walkabout a lot of the time. So you might have a series of connections with them where you feel that you chat every day and then all of a sudden they disappear. Capricorns do this and Pisces do this a lot of the time. It's just in their nature. Don't take it personally. It's just that they need a lot of time to think about how they feel about things and process things on that really deep level, because that's what gives them that level of depth, I guess you could say. It's like a deep cave, and I think that's a big part of it as well. You have to show them your deepest secrets. You have to take them into places that they couldn't necessarily access from themselves. So someone asked me a question today. I'm going to answer it, and I hope that you're listening. Actually, I know you're a female Scorpion. You asked me if you could build your own star sign. What would your ideal sign? What would it be? It would be another Sagittarian, probably, or a Libra, probably. I think the power of two signs that are the same coming together with the same kind of objective can be a lot stronger these days than just one sign in the world doing their own thing, provided that there isn't a level of competition and the two of you kind of complement each other. So that would be my answer to that question as well. Well, I think I've kind of dived in deep enough. I hope I've been able to answer it. There are a lot of great Sages out there, and of course there are a lot of shitty ones as well. A lot of parents, a lot of people that I've met have had parents that were Sagittarians, and they were just kind of, left the family when they were young and did the whole bolt thing. Probably have lots of brothers and sisters, in different parts of the country to, different family members. That's not uncommon. And it is a shame, but there is a masculine energy to the Sag. They like their hands dirty. It shows the world who they are, even if they are just changing sheets in a hotel, even if they are a secretary on a keyboard. They want to show you their work. Their work speaks for themselves. They're proud. There's a lot of pride in the Sagittarians' work. Okay? So that's the truth. If they're proud of their work, they're proud of what they're doing. And if they're in some level of alignment, then that's the best Sag to be around. They're the ones that you want. Also, I want to mention in my life, I have released a lot of people. And this isn't me ghosting them. This, in some cases, I will say you don't get. Did you guys? I don't know if you guys, or if you've ever watched. Perhaps you've watched the show, The Real Housewives of like Beverly Hills, or The Real Housewives of New Jersey, or Orange County, or some shit like that. It's like a Bravo reality TV show, like rich women all bitching and fighting and blah blah blah. You get what I mean. At the end of each season, they generally have a reunion episode, like a part 1 or 2. And it's really where all of the women sit around on a couch and they kind of have like a mediation, or they have some level of like a reunion where they sit down and they talk. And so someone might say, hey, in this season, when you said that, what did that mean for you? And then the other person will have their chance to answer that question. And then there's some kind of closure that happens in the kind of conversation where people can unpack something more, or they can explain something more, and then the other person gets resolution. One of my biggest problems that I've had in my life, and I'm sure you can relate no matter what your star sign is that life doesn't work like that. We all have these relationships that suddenly end, or we have a friendship that suddenly disintegrates. And we don't always get that closure from that person because we can't have an opportunity just to sit down with them and be like, hey, what did that mean for you when you did that? This is how it impacted me. This is what it meant for me. What did that mean for you? That doesn't really happen in real life. So you kind of have to create resolutions with people to create your closure with them, but you can't include them in your resolution to get that resolution. That's something that I've always struggled with in my own life, particularly around people that just disappeared. And or even if they tried to circle back years later and say, hey, how you doing? We should catch up, or how are you? When they're the ones that ghosted me. So any level of inconsistency to me is a danger zone. Anyone who sits on the fence with anything is always a danger zone for the Sagittarius anyway, because you have to be kind of all in, committed into something that your heart's in with your passion, not kind of in between playing both sides of the field. And I think any Sagittarians can be quite black and white like that. But as I've always said, in life, you'll always do better if you choose a side and you're loyal to that team. When you flip-flop from side to side, it doesn't create stability within yourself. And the people that see that you're doing that see you as an unsafe person, because you can abandon them at any minute. And so you have to be in alignment with what you're projecting. And so that's something that would annoy or confuse a Sagittarian, when someone shows multiple sides to their character that are in opposition with what they show them. So it's a dangerous game to play with a Sag, because Sagittarius will use the one thing, like Scorpio does, against you that will hurt you and destroy you, and that's the truth, because nothing can hurt you if it isn't true. And so we know that. So that's the one thing that a Sag will use against you and wield that as a weapon against you if they want to. But yeah, so I hope that made sense. You just kind of don't know what you're going to get. And I think the Sagittarians have friends of all different ages, all different classes of society. They're just kind of like a bit of a chameleon in that way. They don't like to be like, I'm only into blonde girls, I'm only into skinny girls. They're not like that. They'll date a big girl, they'll date a little girl, they'll date all different types of people, because that's just in their kind of fluid nature anyway. So yeah, anyway, they're very honest to a fault. This has been a very honest chat from me. I hope that you've enjoyed it. This was part 2 of me explaining the animal, the human, and the angel, and the complexities that make up the Sagittarian mind. And I hope that you've enjoyed this chat. Please leave a comment below if you feel inclined, and I will see you in the next podcast. I will be continuing this series that I've just started before this as well. So stay tuned, and I'll see you then. Okay, bye, bye, bye.